Tuesday, July 8th edition of PFT PM. And thank you, Netflix. I know. I work for NBC. Shows on Peacock. Thou shalt not mention Netflix. Thank you, Netflix, for dropping quarterback today. It gives me something not just to do, but something to talk about. And I knew it was coming. And I think I even saw a couple of days ago that it's coming on July 8th. It's just weird. This is that time of year where, like, the dates seem disconnected from the days. And when you tell me something's coming on July 8th, I don't stop and think, oh, it's July 6th. I don't know what day it is. Now, again, this may be evidence of a deeper affliction, but I need to hear it's coming in 2 days, not it's coming on July 10th. So that may just be me. I mentioned that because I was very pleasantly surprised to see this morning that there it was on Netflix, and I've begun watching it. And of all of the football reality shows, and I don't know how many there are right now, the biggest ones, the Hard Knocks series and quarterbacks, that seems to be the biggest. And of course, quarterback didn't happen last year because they couldn't find any quarterbacks to do it after the first year. I thought they'd be lining up to do it after the first year because I thought it made, for the most part, it made them look good. Yeah, the whole Marcus Mariota thing was unfortunate, and I'm not sure that it was edited to paint, a non-negative picture of Marcus Mariota. That may be in the eye of the beholder, but it definitely made Kirk Cousins look good. It definitely made Patrick Mahomes look good. Then nobody wanted to do it in 2024, so it became receiver, and it was just too many. 5 was too many. Was it 5? You need 3. You need to give each of the guys who are the subject of the series enough time so we really get to know them. I wanted to get to know more of the Amon-Ra St. Brown family. I just felt like I didn't get enough of anybody. I didn't get enough of Justin Jefferson. Then again, you know how I am about my guy, JJ. It could have been only him, and I would have thought we didn't get enough Justin Jefferson. But I was glad that quarterback returned this year. It's Cousins again. It's Jared Goff. It's Joe Burrow. And I've watched almost 2 full episodes of it. I'm looking forward to watching it all just because it's a nice thing to fill the gap. It's a nice, full day of background noise while I work. And it's not my usual background noise because I actually want to pay attention to this. I've had to go back and rewatch 10 or 15 minutes of it because while I'm working, I pay a little more attention than if I have Seinfeld or The Office or Everybody Loves Raymond or whatever I'll have on, just as kind of like, in lieu of music. It's just something that's on, something that's familiar, something that just kind of fills the silence as I'm otherwise copying, pasting, and snarky commenting. I don't have many snarky comments to make about what I've seen so far in quarterback, but I was interested to see what the series would include as it relates to Kirk Cousins having the rug pulled out from under him by the Atlanta Falcons after he picked Atlanta over Minnesota in free agency in early 2024. And after Michael Penix Jr. was drafted 8th overall, to the shock of everyone, in late April of 24, Kirk Cousins had a press availability mid-May in connection with offseason workouts. And he was asked a very simple and I think fair question: if you had known that the Falcons were going to use a top 10 pick on a quarterback, would you have signed in Atlanta? And he said, I don't deal in hypotheticals. Well, he did deal in hypotheticals for the camera and microphone and quarterback. And he said, what we all believed. He felt a little bit misled by the Falcons' decision to use that 8th overall pick. That could have been a player who would have helped the Falcons play better last year, not a guy who would have been on the bench until he took over for Kirk Cousins late in the season. And I think when you listen to everything that Kirk Cousins said, both the why he left Minnesota and how he felt once he found out that the Falcons were doing exactly what the Vikings told him they were going to do, take a quarterback early in the draft, I think he would have stayed in Minnesota on a year-to-year arrangement. That was ultimately the sticking point. The Vikings were offering a year-to-year arrangement to Kirk Cousins after the 2023 season, and the Falcons were willing to do something with a greater commitment, but the commitment was financial. And usually we assume that when a financial commitment is made, a football commitment is made as well. That's not always the case. So this year, after he made $62.5 million in 2024, Cousins will get $27.5 million to not play for the Falcons unless they don't trade him and Michael Penix Jr. gets injured or just flat out face plants. Who knows? We can't rule out anything. I think Penix will be fine. I think he'll be good. Maybe he could be great. The Falcons clearly see something in him. But Cousins didn't even get a full year as the starter in Atlanta, and he would have been the wire-to-wire starter if healthy in Minnesota in 2024. Now, would they have been any better than they were? Would they have been better suited to win a playoff game? I don't know the answer to that question. But I'm sure there are moments where Kirk Cousins wonders if he had just stayed with the Vikings, would he have enjoyed the same kind of success that Sam Darnold had in his first year with Kevin O'Connell? And when you think about what it would have meant for Cousins, another season with O'Connell, farther along in that curve, and look at how good Cousins was playing before he suffered that season-ending injury in late October 2024 at Green Bay, just 6 days after he had arguably the best game of his career in a Monday night win over the San Francisco 49ers. So the bottom line takeaway for me from watching that first episode as it relates to Cousins, for quarterbacks who are standing on the brink of free agency, you really do have to think through. It's the old adage, the grass isn't always greener, even if the money is more plentiful. Because Cousins had an issue with, not an issue like he's complaining, but it was an impediment he didn't expect. It wasn't the Achilles tendon. It's being in a new city with a new team, with a new offense, with a new coaching staff, with a new home stadium. There's a lot of things that were different. And the offense, and hey, this may just have been selective editing, but man, he's talking about how different the offense is, how it has all these motions and shifts that the Vikings offense didn't have. And then what happens week one against the Steelers? The moment that cemented the game for Pittsburgh, there was a failure by Cousins to process the sequence of when he puts tight end Ross Dwelley in motion, when he calls for the snap, he got it flipped around, and as the snap came, it hit Dwelley, caused a fumble. TJ Watt went and got it. And I think it's very compelling to hear Cousins acknowledge that and to see him on the sideline explaining to Dwelley that he'd been paranoid that he was going to screw something like that up, and he did. And he owned it. So it's worth watching. I can't vouch for the rest of the episodes. Episode 1, worth watching. Episode 2, there's some moments where it was a little slow, but I'm going to watch the whole thing. I recommend the whole thing. And I prefer it to Hard Knocks, especially preseason and in-season, because when's the last time there was anything in preseason or in-season Hard Knocks that moved the needle, that created a talking point for PFT Live or a post at PFT? The best that Hard Knocks has given us in recent years was the offseason with the Giants in 2024, which was so misguidedly transparent from the Giants that no one will ever do offseason Hard Knocks again. That was good. Good for us, bad for the Giants. All right. Good for us, bad for Aaron Rodgers is his propensity to appear each week on Pat McAfee's show during football season and talk about stuff. And look, I knew it would rile up certain folks to comment on the claim that there is no Jeffrey Epstein client list. And I say claim. I don't know what the facts are. Do we ever know what the facts are anymore about anything? I sure as hell don't. But it wouldn't have made its way into this conversation or onto PFT, but for the fact that Aaron Rodgers, during one of those moments where he's way too comfortable in that safe space, where he's never pushed, he's never criticized. So what happens is, and I don't know that McAfee strategically engineered this. Maybe he did, but you make the guy very comfortable and he says stuff. He says stuff he'll never say anywhere else. And he got way too comfortable, and he made a joke, air quotes or otherwise, about Jimmy Kimmel being on the Epstein client list. That was early 2024. And that created, multiple days, multiple stories. McAfee apologized for his role in the situation. ESPN called it something like a dumb and misguided joke or something like that. Aaron Rodgers was upset with ESPN's comment. It all came from the fact that Rodgers feels compelled to hold court once a week on McAfee's show. He doesn't need to do it. I don't know whether he's getting paid or not getting paid. He reportedly was getting paid, but I think he said he's not getting paid. Why, Aaron Rodgers, do you need to do it? I like it that you do it because you give me content. I like it. This is against my interests, but it reminds me exactly of the same things I said about Ben Roethlisberger when he used to do, I think it was a Tuesday afternoon radio spot on 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. He inevitably would say something seemingly every week that would create an issue with the team. You don't want to get yourself in that setting where you're very comfortable, you're very talkative, and you're saying things that undermine what your objective is. What's your objective this year, Aaron Rodgers? That's the question. What is your goal? Let's look at it that way. Let's look at it analytically. What is your goal, Aaron Rodgers? Now, if your goal is to win as many football games as possible, qualify for the postseason, carry the Steelers to their first playoff win since 2016, and possibly beyond, and maybe, just maybe, if everything works out just right, and somehow the Steelers are able to compete with and beat in the postseason the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens or the Texans or the Chargers or the Broncos, the best of the best in the AFC, if they can run that gauntlet and get to the Super Bowl, I assume that's what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. Okay, if that's the objective, how does making a Tuesday appearance every week on McAfee's show cause you to achieve that goal? What does it do? What does it do to help you toward what presumably is your goal, your objective, your obsession? Because you got to be obsessed. To compete with the guys who we know are obsessed, you got to be as obsessed. Patrick Mahomes isn't doing a weekly 20, 30, 40-minute radio, podcast, YouTube thing, TV. Josh Allen isn't doing it. Joe Burrow isn't doing it. Jared Goff isn't doing it. Brock Purdy isn't doing it. So, again, it's against my interests. But if your goal is to win, get to the playoffs, win a playoff game, get to a Super Bowl, maybe win a Super Bowl, be one of those rare guys who can walk away with a trophy under his arm, Jerome Bettis, Michael Strahan, Peyton Manning. You want to join that pantheon? No more Tuesdays. I'll talk to the media because I'm required to on Wednesday. I'll talk after the game because I'm required to, and that's it. It's that simple. Now, if Rodgers has designs on having a podcast of his own, on being in the media, either the new media or the legacy media or any media, well, I understand why he keeps doing McAfee show. But he tells us, you'll never hear from me again. Unless he is willing to do things that are against what his interests should be, and his interest should be focusing fully and completely on winning games for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Unless he's willing to do that, he's lying about his media objectives. And he's doing the podcast thing with McAfee because not long after Aaron Rodgers retires, there will be an Aaron Rodgers podcast. And he'll have some excuse that'll be semi-plausible as to why he decided to do it. I didn't want to do it, but the world needs my voice. Some shit like that. Sorry, Gary. All right. So I think it's very simple. Not that he's going to listen to me, not that he ever would listen to me, but I hope he keeps getting way too comfortable and saying ridiculous things that can be the basis for stories at PFT. I'm not looking for reasons to write about Aaron Rodgers. He gives me reasons to write about him. And the reasons he gave to write about him in January of 2024 resonated into July of 2025 because there's a development that ties back to it, and off we go. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. Because really, I don't know if this is a bit or what. I think what I'm saying is exactly accurate, and I believe it. I just don't know that it helps my business because I really would prefer that he keeps talking. And I hope that he has a podcast where he says all kind of crazy things into perpetuity, like the COVID vaccine has nanobots that under a certain frequency will gather together and form a tracking device, which is exactly what he said on Joe Rogan's podcast earlier this year. Okay. Asante Samuel Sr. on his podcast talking about the fact that there was some sort of interest between the Dolphins and his son, Asante Samuel Jr. Jr. is a free agent, still unsigned. Asante Sr. made the comment that there's no leadership in the Dolphins organization. And that caught my eye because it goes back to one of the biggest criticisms I've had of the Dolphins under Stephen Ross. And it dovetails with what has become a fairly common take in these parts, that as a fan of a team, you're stuck with ownership. Jed York said it several years ago after they fired Jim Harbaugh, then Jim Tom Sula, then Chip Kelly, boom, 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 one year after another. You don't dismiss ownership. No, sometimes you'd like to. The only problem is it's like the Wizard of Oz. You drop a house on the Wicked Witch of the East, there is a chance the Wicked Witch of the West is going to be even worse. So sometimes that owner you have who is driving you crazy may still be better than whoever would end up buying the team, because there is no test. There is no aptitude exam. You just have to have the biggest bag of money when a team is for sale. So I say all that because Stephen Ross, because he lives and works in New York, he's an absentee landlord of the Miami Dolphins. It has led to dysfunction. An owner said years ago, what do you think about Stephen Ross not living in Miami, not working in Miami? The response was, I love competing against him. Yeah. The best owners know where the sweet spot is between being around all the time and showing everyone this matters to me. This is my priority. This isn't some tax shelter. Not that there's any losses involved, but this isn't just, a trophy. This isn't just some property that I'm investing in. I am fully invested in this team. I am here every day. I am making the team headquarters my headquarters. Either this is my only business or this is my principal place of all of my business. I'm not micromanaging my football people, but I'm here every day. I care the way I expect you to care. And, having the owner around, what's the saying? When the cat's away, the mice do play. I mean, what have we seen over the years? The mice are eating each other when the cat isn't there. So look at where they are right now. We got a question coming up later that dovetails with that concept, but look at where they are right now. They just feel lost to me. And I know that makes Dolphins fans upset because Dolphins fans are stuck. They're stuck with Stephen Ross. They're stuck with the status quo. They have to make the best of it when the team is 0-0. And they can plausibly persuade themselves to think that this year is going to be the year for the first time since 2000 that they win a playoff game. Was it 2000 or was it 99? I can't remember. Most can't remember. It was a long friggin' time ago. So delude yourself if you must as you anticipate the start of football season. I'm not going to try to yuck someone's yum as it relates to, the fascination of all the things that could be. Yeah, they could go 17-0 in theory. So could the Giants, and I'll have John Mara's face tattooed on my arm, which is still much better than having his arm tattooed on my face. So the Dolphins feel rudderless. The Dolphins feel shiftless. The Dolphins feel like a team that really does have no unifying vision, leadership, who's in charge, who's driving the bus, where is the bus going. It just feels like the bus is going wherever the players want the bus to go. All right. Question time. RB Roughnecks. Got to get it right. RB Roughnecks. And, I like some of these simple nuts and bolts questions that don't require a 5-minute response. Watch, I'll now do a 7-minute response. How much equity in an NFL team do you need to have team control? Could I own 10%, but as long as no one else owns more than 9%, I have the legal right to control it unless they vote on a managing partner. Here's the current rule. You've got to own 30%. You've got to buy 30%. You've got to show up with cash equivalent of 30% when you buy the team. And what you can do is you pay for the 30% without loans, without anything else. You can line up investors for the remaining 70%, but you can run the team with the 30%. Now, there may be exemptions and exceptions, like there's a family, like if you have the whole family, I think you can get to 30 with a family. They've tried to make it easier for individuals to afford teams. But, some people are rich enough that they just show up and buy the full 100% of the equity and it doesn't matter. Others, I think like with Josh Harris, they had to actually send out prospectus to try to convince investors to get involved. And they have a patchwork of many minority owners who are operating under Josh Harris's minimum of 30%. So it's 30%. It can't just be, I have the most of a smattering of, 50 investors. You've got to have one person that's got 30%, but there could be changes made as the values of the franchises keep going up and as it becomes harder and harder to find people who have the money to buy teams. And again, there's no guarantee it's a good person. There's no guarantee it's anybody who knows a damn thing about football. There's no guarantee they're going to run the show in the best interests of the fans. It's just the person who had the most money. That's the only test. Do you have enough money to buy the team? Callum Simons, do you think you'll watch any of the World Cup next year? Also, will they change the surfaces back to artificial turf after they change them to grass for the tournament? Yeah. Well, look, of all the stadiums that are bending over backwards and putting in grass to placate FIFA and comply with the stringent exacting requirements of international soccer, as soon as the soccer tournament ends, bye-bye to the grass, hello to the fake stuff, whether it's MetLife Stadium, Atlanta, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium where the Falcons play, AT&T Stadium in Dallas, any of these facilities that play on artificial turf. As soon as the last soccer match is over, it's bye-bye to the grass. And I'll probably watch some of the World Cup. I probably will. I want to see how the fields perform where it's not naturally grass. There are complaints that we've seen. The Club World Cup that is either over or has been happening. There was some criticism about the turf, about the pitch at MetLife Stadium. It was more like a putting green than a soccer pitch. Got to get all those terms right. So, yeah, I want to see how it goes. I want to see how the place where football is king absorbs the World Cup 32 years after the last time the World Cup was in the U.S. And it was a big deal the last time. And I paid attention to it then. I like soccer. Every once in a while, I'll fire up the old FC24, the EA version of the soccer franchise that used to be FIFA. Every once in a while, I'll play a game. I'll get my ass kicked, but every once in a while, I'll fire it up while I'm on the bike. When, if I'm playing Madden and I'm doing the Ultimate Team and I'm playing online and there's no good challenges to do and I've got about 15 minutes left in my hour of riding and it's not enough time to play a full game of Madden unless I get the guy to rage quit or I rage quit, I'll fire up and play a quick game of soccer. I like soccer, and the World Cup should be interesting next year for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is how will the American stadiums that otherwise have grass, how will they do with the turf, with the grass that they're putting in to replace the artificial turf? All right. Missy Davis, curious as to your thoughts on the process of roster cuts from 90 to 53 in the absence of preseason games. What would be the best way for coaches to evaluate talent and players to have an opportunity to self-evaluate their likelihood of making the team, join practices, et cetera? This is an outgrowth, I assume, of my belief that at some point in the future, maybe distant, but I think inevitable, there will be 20 regular season games and no preseason games. So, yeah, the league will have to come up with other ways to get teams ready. And at the end of the day, the owners don't care if it's harder for the coaches. They don't care because, I was talking about this, I think yesterday, hell if I know, about the World League. And, it was great opportunities for players to develop. The owners don't care because at the end of the day, there's going to be 53 guys on the team and there's going to be 11 on the field. And it's for the coaches to figure out who the best players are and to get them ready. And if the teams aren't ready, well, they're still going to play the games and they're still going to cash the checks. And it doesn't matter if they're more ready in October than they are in September. So first of all, I think those numbers, 90 and 53, will be higher if and when there are 20 regular season games. By the way, Big Shield available for pre-order in both paperback now and ebook at Amazon. It envisions a not too distant future where professional football, not the NFL, please don't sue me, professional football, which just happens to have teams in all the cities where the NFL does. It's a coincidence. It does envision that future of 20 regular season games and no preseason games. But there's also a larger roster, not 53, I think 60, something like 60. And you got to have more than 90 to get down to 60. But I think both of those numbers will be larger, and it's going to be for the coaches to figure it out. Joint practices, scrimmages, maybe they'll find other ways to make money, but they're going to make the bulk of their money from the 20 regular season games if and when that time comes. Patrick Mullen, this is the question I was referring to earlier. Let me make sure I get this right. Got to scroll down. Okay. Hey, Mike, Dolphins state-run media has been going to the wall defending Mike McDaniel, stating it's impossible to run tight ship these days. Is that true? The Harbaugh brothers, Tomlin, Vrabel, McDermott, Campbell, and many others seem no-nonsense, old school, and are successful. Now, I don't know when you refer to Dolphins state-run media, are you saying that this is what's being pushed by the Miami Dolphins official website, or is it just, the folks who cover a team who become defenders of the team and fans of the team? And it drives me crazy that people who cover a team behave like fans of the team in their coverage of the team. Part of it, I think, is pandering to the audience because you don't want to be person who covers the Dolphins and is perceived as person who hates the Dolphins, because then they'll go get their content somewhere else. I remember when I was in law school and I subscribed to Viking Update, which always showed up too late to be useful. Like, it always arrived the Monday after the next game that was to be played when the issue was printed. But I still read it, and I remember they had a column that was just trolling. It was trolling before trolling. A guy named Dark Star would write this column about how bad the team sucked, and I would get so pissed off, but I loved to read it every week. But, I hate that guy. Why do you hate the Vikings? And it was all trolling. So I don't know that works. I think that fans would rather have the pandering. You can have the pandering with a dash of trolling if you're an outlet that covers only one team. But regardless, I see some of the stuff on social media, the blogs, the websites, the reporters who cover the team and only the team. I take a broader view. I have the benefit of a wider lens. And the idea that it's impossible to run a tight ship is bullshit. Okay? Of course you can run a tight ship. Mike McDaniel's not wired to do it. The fundamental problem with the Dolphins is they were too far to one extreme with Brian Flores in the Belichick hard-ass school of coaching. And when they moved on from Flores, the pendulum swung too far the other way. Now they got players coach who does not run a tight ship, has not run a tight ship, as he admits. Too many guys are late. Too many guys aren't, properly focused. There's a middle ground there that McDaniel either needs to find on his own, and hopefully the players will respond. I don't know that they will, but maybe he can get them to do it. Or they're going to have to hope that the next coach falls somewhere between Flores and McDaniel. So, yeah, it's possible to run a tight ship. But again, this is what happens in July as we're anticipating football season. We want to enjoy football season. We want to convince ourselves that our team isn't going to suck this year. The reality is, with 32 teams in the NFL who play each other, 272 games, there's a winner, there's a loser, barring ties. There will be good teams, there will be crap teams. And some of those 32 teams who are currently 0-0, whose fans are getting themselves all juiced up for what's to come, by Halloween, they're going to know it's over. And they're going to have to find something else to do to fill the hours from, the start of Thanksgiving season, the run up to Thanksgiving, those couple of weeks where you're anticipating the day of gluttony, and then right into the Christmas season. Like it really is fun. Those months are fun when your favorite NFL team is good. When your favorite NFL team is ass, it's no fun. The reality is, unless Pete Rozell's dream comes to fruition and everybody's at 500 until the last week of the season, when all the playoff spots are determined and none of them are clinched ahead of time. That's, there's always going to be teams that are done. Put a fork in them. You can start putting a fork in teams usually by Halloween. And the Dolphins, they could be one of the teams that get forked by the time you go trick-or-treating. Last one, RB Roughnecks. Who's the next NFL team getting sold, and do they relocate? And as Gary pointed out, there's a little Dr. Doom quality here. I wonder if the Saints will be bought after Gail Benson's passing / possible sale and move to a different market. Now, look, we all acknowledge the reality that we're not going to live forever. And for the owners of NFL teams, there is a point where the natural lifespan will conclude. I don't know what the plan is post Gail Benson. I haven't heard anything about it. It could be the team gets sold. Sometimes when an owner passes, the team gets sold. I don't know that the Saints would relocate. The NFL is not going to want to abandon New Orleans. New Orleans has been through a lot with that team, and I think the team and the city need each other, and it would be horrific for the NFL if the Saints were to leave. You can make a team work in any market nowadays because it is the TV money that is the primary source of the revenue. You could make a smaller market work. So, look at the stadium that they've had for 50 years now in New Orleans. How many stadiums has Atlanta been through? The Saints keep finding a way to renovate and update and modernize the Superdome. And the Superdome's a great place. I mean, yeah, the press box is scraping the roof, but I don't care. The last row inside the stadium is still better than the first row outside the stadium. And I love being there for the Super Bowl. I think it's a great town. I think it's a great stadium. So they could be sold, but I don't know why anybody would move them. And yeah, at some point they may need a more permanent stadium solution. Hopefully they can figure it out. We know that's getting harder and harder because public money may not be as prevalent. And as I say that, boom, this state does a deal and that state does a deal. I mean, I still think at the end of the day, even as the taxpayer mood is against it, still seems like the money's there. So the next team that will get sold, to answer the first part of the question, it's going to be the Seahawks, I think. Unless somebody just decides out of the blue to cash out, and I don't rule that out as these values keep going up and up, Jody Allen will be selling the Seahawks at some point. She has no deadline for selling the Seahawks. She had no deadline for selling the Portland Trail Blazers. She is in charge of her late brother Paul Allen's estate, the Microsoft billionaire, multi-billionaire, and she has been liquidating his holdings over the past, 5, 6 years, 7 years almost? I think he died in 2018. So the Trailblazers were put up for sale not that long ago. The Seahawks at some point will be put up for sale. And the values of these teams keep going up and up. And the people who will benefit, the charities who will benefit from the return that the Seahawks bring, the delay, they don't have the money now, but boy, they're going to get a lot more later. Eventually, Jody Allen's going to sell that team, and there's going to be a ton of money that goes to the charities that Paul Allen chose to support. All right, that's it for this Tuesday edition of PFT PM. I'm going to get back to quarterback. If there's anything that I see between now and tomorrow, it may be a topic for Wednesday's PFT PM as we're getting closer and closer to the start of training camp, but it still is kind of slow. So we'll have plenty to talk about. And if it's only 15 minutes tomorrow, so be it. I have a feeling, though, that's one of the things I've learned from doing this for so long. You can talk about anything. really can filibuster. I could do it. I could have done the 25-hour Cory Booker thing if, I had a diaper on. I don't know that I could have gone 25 hours without answering nature's call, but I definitely could have come up with something to talk about for 25 hours. We'll see you in about 24 hours for a new PFT PM. Check us out around the clock at profootballtalk.com. Thanks, as always, for some of your time. See you tomorrow. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.